Okay, good afternoon. Audible heavy? Is it audible, Tushar? Anyone let me know? Okay, Pooja. Is it audible? We can start. Any doubt you have? नहीं है. Okay, audible. क्या problem है इसमें? Okay. Fine. So we understood the relation between, not the distinction between, right? So law is fundamental to ethical evaluation. Fine. Anything which is legal is mainly considered to be ethical, or whatever needs to be ethical has to be enforced legally. Though major portion of the ethics also comes from voluntary acceptance. Okay, people do something which they feel is credible or for that matter acceptable. But many times what is acceptable may not be actually a parameter, right? Or standard parameter for doing things. Okay, so दोनों aspects हैं, but more or less our concern is to find out what are the general parameters of being ethical or moral. So इसमें एक next part है which we'll try to understand the scope of ethics, approach and nature in civil services, right? So we use a term, right, probity in governance. Right. Now we'll start with very basic discussion related to the second ARC views. Fine. So its report on ethics in governance is a very comprehensive report. Obviously, though we'll cover it in bits and pieces here and there, right? But we'll try to start first with understanding how and why, right, civil services comes in the domain of ethical evaluation. So you know what is civil services, fine, that you know obviously. So how do we expect civil services to be? Okay, that is the parameter. That is the desirable parameter, right? What conduct they exhibit, personal or professional. ये दो अलग-अलग चीजें. But professional conduct more or less is also related to their personal conduct. Why? Because the nature of the work they are performing, that is not considered to be purely, or you can say that is the nature of work they are performing is totally or considered to be purely in the public or welfare, public welfare or public interest. So anything that they do, even in personal life, is also subject to scrutiny. For example, conduct of judges. So judges have to be very cautious about their behavior in personal life also. No, because see, we may say personal and professional are different things, no doubt, right? But definitely personal life, if it goes beyond a defined jurisdiction, right, it will encroach into the professional. Right, to be the factor. Plus, whenever you are acting, you have power. You might be compelled to use that power for personal ends also. Okay, because there cannot be a restriction on the voluntary use of power. Discretion को हम control कर सकते हैं, voluntary use को नहीं कर सकते. Voluntary use क्या है? How you are able to manipulate that power, right? As per your influence in the system. ठीक है? तो ये तो possible है, right? For example, IAS पूजा खेड़कर, perfect example. ठीक है? So we'll start with what second ARC. Now second ARC starts with a very basic idea. The democracy does not suffer from those who don't, or those who are not aware of the democracy, right? But it suffers from those who are aware but do not participate. So what does this mean?
So as the voting will reduce.
कुछ लिखो पहले अच्छा, कुछ लिख लो. It's okay. You write. You have to write content also. No? You have to write answers also. Right. Okay. There is a universal concern regarding the implementation of policies and laws. There is universal concern regarding the implementation of policies and laws in various societies whatever be the nature of political system. Whatever be the nature of political system. As as we as we witness diversity of political ideologies that has impact on the nature of administrative system and culture this eventually impacts the society and thereby the values that affect the individual and social behavior. This helps us in understanding how individual interacts with the global or vice versa. For example, the farmer protests in India had a huge support outside India. And in fact, allegations that protest was funded through anti-India sympathizers. Protest was funded through anti-India sympathizers. Another example could be the emerging consensus on sustainable development. Where initiatives like the local Chipko movement got eventually integrated into the global concern for sustainable governance. Whether it is human rights or gender equality or refugee crisis etc., etc., the ecological impacts on individual and community behavior is obvious. Individual and community behavior is obvious. Okay. So, nation states today. So, nation states today cannot be merely concerned with their internal issues, as their decisions would be impacting and getting impacted by getting impacted at the global levels. Okay. It is this concern for local global nexus, or to say the emerging culture of globalism that has created a necessity for an ethical governance framework. Okay, next paragraph you can take. This context has been duly analyzed in the second ARC report on ethics in governance, where it has made reference to the various committees like Justice Douglas Committee, USA, Nolan Committee, UK, Santram Committee, Santram Committee, 1964, Vora Committee, 1993, First ARC, 1966. In India, right? These committees have time and again emphasized on the fact that no society can can value, no society can value ethics and morality unless its political and administrative culture is improved. Okay, the primary focus of the report is centered around the following themes. Centered around the following themes. Following themes. Themes. देखो. All the terms that we have studied, they are the basic content of any newspaper editorial you will study. Right? So the moment you start studying any editorial today, you'll realize that whatever they are saying, you have already studied that. Except they are talking about factual information, that's a different thing. So no theme in governance, right? Yeah, political reform or administrative reform, right? That is, nothing is there of governance reform which has not been covered in the classes. In fact, जो term वो use करते हैं, right? वो term और उनसे improved version of terms हम already अपनी classes में discuss कर चुके हैं. If you read any editorial, especially Hindu or Express का, if you read, right? So themes is still important. Themes always give you a broad analysis. And basic facts, so you can keep adding, that doesn't matter, right? So themes क्या है? Themes are the various perspectives, right? Various premises on which they have talked about reforming the administration. So fundamental reform कहाँ पे चाहिए सबसे पहले? Decolonization of civil services. Decolonizing civil services. From North Coast Travelling Report 5354 or Macaulay Report 5455. Hutchinson Report 1886. Or Lee Commission 1924. Or 1935 Act, which subsumed most of these reforms. The primary focus of civil services in India under colonial rule was based on the following premises. Bias merit or selective merit, elitism, focus on babudam, restriction on Indianization of civil services, as far as possible keep the bastards away, as the term was used by many of the Britishers. So whether it was Cornwallis or Wellesley, or for that matter later on, Curzon and whatever these people who were there, they always believe that somewhere we have to keep them away. Now see this, whatever they did, right, ultimately led to centralization. Centralization and so whatever was happening, that ultimately led to the centralization of power in the hands of the elites, the British, and the master-slave relationship that emerged. Now this led to what? This led to the emergence of bureaucratic culture. Okay, this is what led to the belief that what a civil servant has to do is to control the power, nothing else. Fine. Sarkar, my baap. Daridra Narayan. Fine. Masiha culture, right? Glorification, idealization, technically something like almost treating these civil servants as divine. Okay, that is how they were treated. So यहाँ से, from here the culture emerges कि भाई civil services क्या है? You start worshipping the Gora Sahib. See? So it was like destroying not only the independence or the kind of self-respect we had, it was somewhere destroying the very basic, you can say, the moral of the society. So what they did not just impact how the structures emerged, they also impacted how we started viewing those structures. So they created a kind of worldview where people started feeling that, okay, these people are what? These are the gods, they are the demigods, right? And ultimately, this is whom we should worship. That is why collector started becoming or emerged as something what he is today. That is how the collector's office became, right, so powerful. And that is why collector was considered to be the local god. Fine. So, second yardstick is of the view that first important aspect क्या है? Decolonizing not the system, but also the mentality of the people. Fine. So एक theme के around discussions are based on this idea. Right. Second, is the structural reform. So what are the structural reforms now? Right.
To reduce the collector's power at the local level.
No, that's fine, but very basic reform क्या चाहिए? See, you have ministries. These ministries are divided into departments. The actual work is transacted. Fine. This is the actual. Now these departments further can be divided into many small segments, but let's make it broad division. This will be divided into the secretariat, or you can say broadly, and directorate. Now this will be further divided. Officers and office. Office कौन है? Obviously those are the subordinates, right? Lower subordinate officials. Fine. Directorate again. Right? These are called subordinate officers. See? Now they have created a basic structure, right? Ministerial level also there is a structure or design. Now see, these administrative offices go by different names. Like you have Council of Minister. To support this, there is Central Secretariat. You have Cabinet. To support it, you have Cabinet Secretariat. Then you have individual ministry. To support it, you have Secretariat. Right? You have Prime Minister independently support. Now see, variety of structures have emerged. More or less, these structures are based on the 7th schedule or the list which was created under under Act 1935 or 1935 Act, right? ये जो functions हैं, mostly they are based on 7. Fine. अब ये system जो है, see, and it has a lot of variety of other organizations, right? So what or major functions which are performed in the government, they are performed in the departmental form of administration. What is the departmental form? This is the departmental form. Anything which is directly controlled by the ministry and works under a bureaucrat, right? Or a secretary, and generally the function is divided in that structure or design which is already given, right? Now see, whenever we are following a departmental form of administration, what happens? That means every function of the government will be performed through this structure only. So when this is happening, right, what is the consequence? See? Excessive bureaucratization. Now, अब excessive bureaucratization होगा तो all the consequences of the bureaucratization will take place. That is Understandable? See, now, so ultimately, when excessive centralization control will happen, many consequences will emerge that you know, many of these consequences. But this system also is generally divided or designed around the territorial administration, generalist domination, ministerial control over service conditions, doctrine of pleasure, political head, governor or president, they exercise it, and so they control each and every administrative decision, right? Obviously, certain changes were introduced by the Britishers, no doubt. After the Macaulay report comes, or a Chinson Commission report comes, where provincial civil services is created, lower subordinate civil services is created, right? So they did certain changes, right? But they divided the functions into ministries and departments, right? But they never reduced the political control over administration. Never they did that. So even if we say decentralization हो रहा है, but that decentralization is only merely of the function, right? And not of the administrative or political control. That did not happen. So when your structure is designed in this manner, right? For example, जिसको हम बोल सकते हैं कि भाई ब्रिटिशर्स ने इंट्रोड्यूस किया टेक्निकली द वेस्टमिंस्टर मॉडल, right? The Westminster model, the Whitehall system, cabinet form of government, all this somewhere impacted the structure. Every structure, now see, there are a lot of micro aspects in the structure. Okay. For example, now see, Westminster model क्या है? What is the Whitehall system? What is the cabinet form? Fundamental logic है क्या? Secrecy. Secrecy. Sovereignty of the state. Fine. Secrecy fundamental है, sovereignty of the state fundamental है, right? और क्या है? Political versus permanent executive, which reflects where there is an autonomy of administration, but it is not. Fine. So it does not result in dichotomy technically. It wants the civil services to be treated separately, but in reality, क्योंकि हमारे पास ये कैबिनेट फॉर्म है या वेस्टमिंस्टर मॉडल है, so ultimately they are not autonomous. So what is the primary, right? What is the primary focus of civil services? Is to serve the political masters, obviously with neutrality and whatever, right? But in reality, they are not able to do it. Okay. So neutrality has a basis, right? That they should be treated or they should remain neutral, but they are not able to because the system is like that. So they have designed the system, but they have not promoted the functioning of the system in that manner. So it is just a design and not the actual functioning. Okay. But still, let us say, so these are one feature, one feature, one feature. Then, like I said, generalist domination, generalism, domination of generalism in civil services, right? What else is Whitehall system? See, in Britishers, the minister plus the secretary dual plus collective accountability. Whenever decisions are taken, they are signed by the minister, they are countersigned by the secretary. In India, it is not so. The secretary works on behalf of Government of India and he signs the documents in the name of President of India or in the name of Governor of India. Okay? But यहाँ पे double check है, वहाँ पे नहीं है. They had, but it's not in. See. Also, Britishers, as you know, they follow the shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet in British, UK, but not in right. So see there, और क्या चाहिए? नहीं. So ये जो structure है, अब ये बहुत बड़ा issue. अब structure में क्या vital है? That the decision maker, now see. Politics administration overlap, right? Try to understand. In implementation, there is administrative autonomy, but in formulation, there is an overlap. So automatically, we may assume that in implementation, there is not complete autonomy. Why? Because when they are formulating it together, how can you avoid the influence of the politics on implementation? So second RC बोलता है कि भाई हम we desire, right, dichotomy. So second RC somewhere supports, yes, dichotomy is desirable. That does not mean and not the absence of accountability. And not the absence of political control or accountability. That is not what it is trying to say, but it says dichotomy is desirable. Whenever, right? Now, why second RC says so? He says when policies are formulated, there is need for civil servants to associate with politicians, right, or political masters. But they, or that is the opportunity, or that is the scenario where the greatest danger for politicization takes place. See? So if that is political heads, and somewhere this is administration. So see the top levels of administration, right? कहाँ से कहाँ तक? Let's see. Secretary, additional secretary, joint secretary, right? Generally, principal secretary made up designation, right? Generally, the general designation of secretary. Okay. So secretary, additional secretary, joint secretary, ये तो common है हर department में. So they are directly now involved with them, and they are the ones, right? Now if I take formulation हो गया, now if I take implementation हो रहा है, then again they are the ones who dominate the implementation also. So first question, second ARC raises that how is it possible that the same civil servants who are involved in formulation are also involved in implementation? It says in one context it is good, they have better knowledge, they can give better input, right? But in another context it is not good. Why? Because they will already be politicized. There is always a danger of politicization. They may not be good or bad, right? But they will always be influenced by the political pressure. So they cannot eliminate it. Second, how can they find too much of time? How will they find actual time, right? That they are able to implement it effectively. So what they will do? You have to understand this. See? Sorry. Issues can be overlapping may improve policies, but may increase the dangers of politicization. Or you can write those terms which they are using, it's fine. Politicization, nexus. Politicization, nexus, rent-seeking, monopoly. So overlapping, acha, bura. Fine. Because of that, formulators and implementers are same, conflict of interest. So personal and public interest may get mixed up. Neutrality will be undermined, and they might start seeking favors from each other. Mutual bargain and favors. Lack of time at the top levels in terms of monitoring, feedbacks, supervision. When the top levels will not be able to monitor or supervise, then ultimately what will happen? The middle and lower levels will remain leaderless, right? They will be lacking the administrative guardianship, right? This may have several consequences, like demoralizing the workforce. Increased suspicion. Abuse of power at street level bureaucracy, right? Now see, just because the top levels are missing from their role, or they are having dual role. When they are having dual role, their occupancy is increased. Obviously, they do not have enough time to seek and review whatever is happening. Point there. See? The departmental form or model of administration also develops a tendency of bureaucratic expansion. Why will that be?
is if the doctor is not able to check on the process of metabolism, they will try to say
So why they will have tendency to increase this?
because they have accountability.
So वो departments या और structures क्यों increase करेंगे? See, once they are not able to implement it properly, once they are feeling that there is gap in implementation, when policies fail, right, or when certain things happen, what will happen? They will try to create an excuse of lack of finance, lack of manpower, lack of effective monitoring or review mechanisms. So what will happen? This will create the opportunity for creation of more departments. Theory, practice, gap, puja, correct? That's also logical, right? So in general, what will happen? There will emerge, or there will be emergence of lot of sub-departments, organizations at middle and lower levels. This outrightly, again, what it does? It again makes the higher levels more powerful, because now as the departments expand, right? The budgetary demands will increase. The manpower or human resource need will increase, right? The structure, or let's use the word infra, will be required, right? New legislations or new laws will be needed. See? So what eventually is happening? To overcome the problems of bureaucracy, we are creating more bureaucracy. Okay, this is exactly what happened with Planning Commission also. An organization like Planning Commission, which was staff body, right? You use the word extra constitutional, right? So it was a staff body, and eventually it was supposed to, right, somewhere reduce the bureaucratic hurdles, the delays which are there in the departmental form, right? Ministerial model, you understand? But what it did, ultimately, it also bureaucratized. It became bureaucratic itself. See? So structure. Now, obviously, there are elaborate systems which are there at within the department level. Multiple sections are there, right? Multiple wings are there, branches are there. There are a lot of elaborate, complex structure, right? And obviously, this complex structure can only be managed by what? Documentation, written orders, reliance on written record keeping, documentation. So, ये क्या करता है? Eventually, this entire model so what it will do? Yes, it will totally be what Mughals 𝐃𝐨𝐰𝐧𝐥𝐨𝐚𝐝.
Unlock your ethical edge with ProdEgyIAS. Join our Ethics Foundation program under the expert guidance of Ashutosh Pandey starting 4th August 2025. Master concepts, build perspectives, and excel in your UPSC journey. Enroll now at ProdEgyIAS, where success begins.